Let's talk about data set cleansing. A lot of times you'll get a data set that you need to fix. You might download it from the internet from a company or nonprofit, and you need to, before you do any real analysis with it, you need to clean it up because it has problems. So let's take a look at a couple of the techniques you can use to do that. So here I have a data set that was provided by Land Rights Group, and there's a couple things you notice right off the bat with this. The first is we have row 1 at the top, and it apparently there's things in there that we can't see. So, but to use a data set, you have to know what everything is, and so you would actually select that perhaps and drag that down so that it's bigger. The other thing that's a problem here is that, as you can see, it's very difficult to read. So what we will do is you can basically select the whole thing like this. You got to select the entire data set. So this takes, a few seconds to select everything. And then what I generally do is go up here. It's Arial 7, which is Arial's a fine font. You can, of course, choose Calibur, works pretty nicely, but make it bigger. 10 or 12 point is about the right size. You say, well, it's still kind of ugly, and I agree with you. And a lot of times what I will do is auto fit the row height because we got a lot of extra space in there, and when I do that, we get this so it's a little bit easier to see and read. Sometimes you will actually do an auto fit for the column width, and so that makes it look a little bit better. It's easier to read. We see more of what we have. Now, there's a question here, are there any hidden rows or columns? And I see here that we go A, B, C, D, E, F, G, H, I, so there's no columns hidden. And once I have this completely highlighted this, if I'm worried about hidden rows or columns, I can actually right-click and I need to right click in the side here and then click unhide. So when I've highlighted the whole thing, you can do that by clicking up in here in the corner. You go over to one of the borders and you click unhide, and that will unhide any rows or columns. So that's the first thing we need to do. The second thing is you can use the trim and clean functions to get rid of extra spaces behind or before, either before or behind in data entry, and those will mess things up. So let's see here. Let me go to the other sheet, and here I have a sheet. So let me show you how to do that just for fun here. We would start a new spreadsheet and start in A1, and what you do is equal trim, clean first, I'm sorry, trim, and then open another parentheses. I just click on these things and click here on that first cell in A1. I started in A1 with a clean and trim, and then I click on A1 for the original one, and I close both parentheses and hit enter. And when I do that, what it will do is clean up the text. Now, what I have to do then is we went through row H, and I've got to go all the way to the bottom of the data, which I didn't know, which is somewhere in here. So we have we've created a bunch of all the cells on the new sheet. We've cleaned and trimmed all the original ones, and now what I'm going to do is do a copy. Click on copy that, create another new sheet, and then I'm going to paste it in here, but I'm going to do a paste special, which is just values. And that gets rid of all the formulas and all that. So now I have the spreadsheet here that has just the values in it, and as I did before, I'm going to do a auto fit column width, and you say, well, that looks terrible. I say, well, it does. So I'll go back, and you can set these things by yourself if you'd like. This is a little too wide probably for A. And we want this H to be a bit bigger, like probably about that wide. And I'll click on word wrap here, which is under this that menu, and then I can do what I can change colors or do whatever. So I've got all of these, all of this. So now it looks like, so that's how I use the clean and trim function. Now, when I all done with that, I end up with a sheet that looks, this is the original, and then this one is the, where did it go here? Here we go. This is what I'm done. I didn't copy column I there before. I should have, but here's what the sheet looks like when we're done with that. So we've done the white space and new lines. Next thing we want to do is get rid of duplicates and misspelled words and that sort of thing. The easiest way I've found to do that is to use a filter function. So I click on filter up here, and I sort and filter, and then I click on filter, and you'll notice that what that does is it puts a little drop-down box in each one of the top cells. And you say, well, what use is that? Well, I can click on that, and that will give me every separate instance of the data in that column. And so in this case, it's all the different countries. And what I do is I just scroll through here and look to see if there's any that are close to being slightly misspelled. And I didn't see anything in the countries. So let's look at Land Grabber here. And I go down through here. And the first thing I notice is that we have Chinese investment group and then Chinese investors. And so probably those ought to be combined. This probably, Chinese investment group is kind of a non-specific thing, and so is Chinese investors. There's no personally identifiable names in there, so you do that. And so I would just go through and make sure that those things were kind of combined as appropriate, and just look through here and see if there's any misspellings. It's hard to find a misspelling that starts with the wrong letter. That's a little bit more difficult, but for the most part, we could look through here and see. There's another two. There's Chinese interests and Chinese investors, and this is just a matter of that exists because people were putting this in. Different people were putting it in, or somebody was putting it at different times, and they just use different terms for the same thing. So anyway, we go through here. I think that if I recall correctly, there's one here at the bottom that is, there's Wilmar International, and then Wilmar International / Olam. So what we would do is go through and do a search and replace to fix those things. We'll use search and replace a bunch of times. I presume that you've done that before, so I'm not going to show you how to use search and replace. It's just that we need to do that to fix these things up. This is one way you find that sort of thing. So I would go through each one of these and make sure that we know where we fix the misspellings and we combine categories. Because if we wanted to do a pivot table on these things, then we don't want extraneous categories. Now another one here is the sector, and we look through there, and there's a bunch of probably extra ones. I'm not sure, and there's also some that are blank, which need to be fixed. And so you go through and look through your data that way. So another thing is that we might want to go through and take a look at and fix blank cells. Certainly these things all have a sector. And one thing we can do is when we have our filter running here, I said this one had blanks, and so what I'm going to do is go through and unselect all of these things, and then go down to the blanks, select that one, and click OK. And what that does is it gives me, in this case, I don't know, about 10 sectors that would need to be fixed up here. So we could choose or type in those particular sectors so we can identify them. Now, one reason I didn't, we could use the isBlank function. Sometimes when you do the clean and trim thing that we did before to clean up the data, the isBlank function doesn't work. So you can always use the sector function to identify those that you want to fix, or the filter function to do that. And so if you want to see them all again, you just click on the select all and click OK, and then you're back to where you were. Okay. The next thing is to fix numbers that aren't numbers, and you see in column G that we have millions there, and what we'd really like for those is to have those be millions. So the question is, how do we do that? And one way to do that is to replace we notice we have decimal points here. Replace the decimal points with and so we scroll down through here. You can replace all the decimal points with nothing. That's not probably a bad thing to do since we have decimal points in all of them. And we can add, substitute the 0 or at the end of it with additional zeros. This one has enough in here so it could probably make this work. And there's no, you can use this left function here. It doesn't have any dollar signs, and so that's not going to help us too much. Although, let's look at the original one. The original one had 77 million in it, so how would we fix something like that? Well, we can go to Find and Select, or Replace, and type in the US and then the dollar sign, and replace it with nothing, basically. And so we do a replace on that one. It will automatically find the next one. And these are, you have to be careful. You can't just do a replace all because you may want it in another cell, but you don't want it in the projected investment cell. So one way to help you with that is actually to go back to the spreadsheet and click on a cell, go to Options, and then you want to change. In this case, we want to search not by rows but by columns. And so we're in this column, and that'll allow us just to go down the column rather than flip back and forth between columns in the same row. So we have identified when they're going to replace that one, and that looks correct. So we'd replace that one and that one. We just when we're doing these, we really should look at these things to make sure that we're okay, and that helps us look at the data. Now you do the same thing to get rid of the million. You do the same thing. You just type in million or space and then million and replace it with nothing. Okay. We could do a replace all, perhaps. We have to be careful when we're doing that, because I don't know. I might like to click a bunch of times rather than screw up the data. That's kind of how I feel about it. So anyway, that's how you use search and replace to do that. And like I said, if we wanted to do the million, we put a space, then million, and because there's a space after the 350 in this case, and so I'd replace that and replace that, and that's how you do that sort of thing. So that's how you fix the numbers. If you're brave enough, you can change them to search and replace all of them if you want. Now that next thing here is the we end up with a couple things like this, was $8 per hectare per year, and we just have to do the calculation there to figure out what that means in millions of dollars. All right, so that's a brief run through data cleansing, and I hope that's helpful.